So we're meeting today at 9 a.m. Melbourne time, and today we are going to talk about failure and success structures, our personal structures. So it's a bit of a triggering one. Well, it can be, and it also can be a very enlightening piece of work, because when we actually know our structures, when we can identify them, then we can change them. Then we have the awareness to choose something different. So that's the point. And that's and when you will have a failure structure, and you will also have a success structure. And we're going to go through that today. And if you are not aware of them, then we're going to give you the tools to actually learn how to identify these structures that you have. So you've probably heard me talk about structures before, and Julie's probably talked about them, but in simple terms, a structure is an object of moving parts. So for example, let's say our foot is part of the structure of our body to our ear. So the ear and the foot are part of the same structure. They're not the same, but they're part of the same structure. But someone else's foot is a completely different structure. So, and to create a structure, there needs to be moving parts, and there needs to be tension. So when there is no tension in a structure, it becomes out of alignment. It's sort of wobbly. And so in our arm, like a hinge, we have tension in the muscle that creates this structure to move. So does that make sense? And everything in our life has structure, whether we choose it ourselves, whether it's been created unconsciously for us. So we have physical structures. We also have energetic structures that end up creating the reality that we have. And part of this work that we do here in Creator Sphere and in the Power of Three, and the work that I do individually with my clients, is to identify the structures that aren't working. And that is, the true self-mastery is to be able to identify what's not working and move through it anyway. Self-mastery is to be able to identify structures that we've put in place and create new ones. So that is what we're going to look at today, and looking at structures, looking at failure structures, looking at success structures. So simply, a failure is simply that we've had a goal or our expectations weren't met. As simple as that. Like all the other stuff that comes with it is our personal input that we put in it. But a failure is simply an expectation or a goal that just we didn't get the outcome that we wanted. Now, success is the opposite. Success is when we've had an expectation and it has been met. So we've all can think of times in our life where we have had success and where we have felt failure. And depending on how much resistance or tension you have on that particular goal or expectation, depending on how heavy that sits within you. So I just wanted to talk about those things. So, and everyone has a predictable structure. You will have a predictable structure. And when you actually start thinking about things that you've achieved in your life, things that maybe work, things that haven't, that you'll actually see what that structure is. So I'm just going to go through my notes. Okay. So before we get started, I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes just to see if anyone else is joining. I'm just going to go over to Facebook to see if anyone else is there, if there's any questions there. No? Okay, great. I will keep going because this is recording. And so once again, welcome to all Power of Three coaching clients. I may share this on my Conscious Masterclass too, because I think this could be a good one to share, and also creatorsphere.world. You may see this as well. So welcome to session 1 of the Recode. So each week we're going to do a different topic, which will be part of the coaching program, which will be part of your education in becoming a master of life. So self-mastery, part of becoming a conscious creator. So each week we do sessions. Sometimes there'll be bonus sessions. Sometimes there'll be longer immersions that we offer the group in the Power of Three. And this is all about education. This is all about working and becoming a master of life, self-mastery, that we become a master of our emotions, that we can become a master of the structures in our life, which is what we're going to tap on today, that we can choose true choices, and we can create a structure and tension that pulls us towards our end result and not one that's floundering or not one that gets us halfway and back again. So the whole point of this work is to create structures that work to create the life that we love. The structures that will pull us towards where we can release the resistance. And last week when I spoke about the 5 principles of conscious creating, if you didn't see that, you can go back and have a look at that. We go through the 5 steps of choosing what we love and removing resistance, and that is the structure of it. Of success, like pulling you forward, so where we can move resistance. But if we don't know where there's resistance and we don't know what our structures are, this is where today is going to be fruitful for you. Okay, so I want you to think about different times that, you know, the things that you have been able to achieve, and when you've been able to achieve the success, has it been easy? And things that haven't really worked out, has it been been harder? But I want to identify that for you. So I want you to think about something that you want to create that you haven't been able to create, something that you would really, really love to create. I want you to think about something that you'd really love that just hasn't been able to come to fruition yet. And I want you to do it from your heart space, just from the place of love, that you're doing this from a really loving heart, that I just want this thing that you want to create, and just because I love it. And I want you to close your eyes, feel into the heart space, and if you need to tap your hand on there, do that. And I want you to think about that object, thing, experience that you want to create, and think about it true from the place of love and from heart. Okay, I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes to close your eyes and just move into that space, that loving space. Just take a few minutes just to go in there. What is it that you really want to create? What is it that thing that sort of just you haven't been able to quite get? Haven't been able to quite get that structure. And I want you now just to feel into it with such love. Then I want you now just to sort of type in, what does it feel like? What does it feel like? So it feels like bliss. What else have we got? Bliss, joy, relief, powerful, pride. This beautiful feeling of this, that you've come to that your creation has come to fruition. And so just feeling it and how good it feels that to create it. So we're going into that end result. We're going into that elevated emotion of what you want to create. And when you go into that creation with your heart, how does it feel? Does it feel expansive? Yes. Yep. Does it feel good? And now I want you just to come back and just feel in the bliss of what we just did then, coming from that heart space, coming from that place of love, that this is what I want to create just because I love it, a true choice. And take a deep breath in. and out. And the other thing I want now is that I want you to think about the same thing that you want to create. But this time, I want you to do it from your identity. Now, what I mean by that is, what does this mean for me creating this? What does this mean for me creating this end result? What is it about my identity that will change when I create this end result? I want you to now choose it from this place. Once you close your eyes, and I want you now to go into choosing this from your identity. And I want you to acknowledge the difference. And what I mean by identity, what does this mean? How does it feel different? How will people see me? What would this end result mean to me as my identity? So I want you just to go in that, just take a minute or so just to go in there and see this end result from the place of your identity. Okay. Does it feel different? I'm getting a yes. Feels a little different, doesn't it? Does it feel a little constricted? Does it feel... So what are some of the feelings you're getting with this end result coming from the place of identity? What are some of the things? Is it same or different? So it feels a bit different. Yeah. People will love me more. I will feel successful. People will think. So it's I'm getting here that is very much about how other people see you as well, how you're going to be perceived, judgment. Do I know enough? Worried about the how. Okay. When you're coming from the identity, you're worried about the how. Do I know enough? How do I get there? A little bit of fear. Okay. Not worthy. Another one is I will be worthy when I get this. I feel worthy. So do you see how it's changed a little bit? Do you see how your perspective, same end result, coming from a different place? One's coming from heart, which is just I choose it because I love it. No expectations. Just choosing it, just in the end result, just from the place of love. And the other one is coming from our identity. And do you see how all the stories, inner conflicts start showing up? Now, it's an interesting exercise to do to see it be different. So you can see that when we choose something just because we love it, we don't get roped up in the how and our ability and what this means for us or how people see us. You know, one is like, I feel more love, I will feel loved, I will feel respected when I'm in the end result. So the invisible instruction is that you're telling yourself that I'm not that now. I'm not worthy now. I'm not respected now. I'm not loved as much now. So you see, but when you choose it just from love, you didn't think that. You just thought, I want it because I love it. Do you see the difference? And you see how our identity can create a failure structure when we come from that place of limited perspective. And the structures show up in lots of ways. Like I did here, a story. So if we look at the structures that people create, one example was Marilyn Monroe and how she was brought up in homes. I think her mother had a mental issue. So she grew up sort of in an orphanage or in a group home. So the structure that she created was to be chosen, to stand out. Because if she's chosen, then she's going to create a better experience. So this is just one example. So Marilyn Monroe, her childhood structure was, I need to be chosen. And then later on in life, how she created that, you know, that she needed to be chosen. She needed to stand out. She needed to be saved. So coming from that structure that we put in, our unconscious mind put in to keep us safe. And so her identity was that one of someone who needed to be saved, someone who needed to be chosen, and she would manipulate the situation to create that to happen. Now that's just from the observation. So, and then working with clients, I also see when people are trying to create, especially when they're stuck in the problem-solving identity. I had a client just recently and talking about, she said she had trouble really visualizing what she wanted in the end result. She had it there, but her identity of the problem solver, of the person who solves problems, kept getting in the way, because creating this new aspect of her life was not a problem that needed to be solved. It was a creation. So her whole life had been about moving from one problem or one solution to the other. So until that creation had hit, and she actually had the awareness, until that creation was going to hit a problem where her business got stuck or it couldn't grow anymore, she wasn't dealing with it, because her identity was all about, well, it needs to be a problem to be solved and not something to create. So coming into that will be a different kind of structure. Whether it fails or not, I don't know. That didn't matter. But but often that kind of situation will create failure when you attach it to your identity, because our identities are put in place early on, and they actually create limited perspective of what we're trying to create. We've moved out of the heart space and into the unconscious mind of our limited perspective of ourselves, the ones that have been created, our wounded child, our protector controller, our other identities that are put in place to keep us doing what we've always done. And sometimes failure will show up because on the other side of that creation, your identity doesn't know what that feels like. Your identity knows what it feels like to be in struggle. Your identity knows what it feels like to be a victim. There's an identity that knows what it's like to always be the problem solver, the one that actually handles problems as they show up. But they don't know what they are in abundance, or they don't know what they are when they're in a happy relationship. So their identity will hijack their success structure. When you come from here, I want a relationship just because I love it, just because it'll be fun and awesome and I love it, can be hijacked by the identity of the victim or the identity of the wounded. And sabotage programs and things will be created to allow you not to get that end result. Does that make sense? Does that resonate with you, with failure and success structures and how our identities can affect what shows up for us and how we get there? So it's important to understand the aspect of our identity, what's showing up. And we can get to choose. I did an exercise with a client the other day. We're choosing an end result. And coming from the superconscious, which is heart, which is your heart space, which is one of love. We also chose the same result coming from victim, feeling like the victim and choosing it. And then also coming from the problem solver. And they were all very different how she saw, same end result. So depending on how you choose to go forward when in the creation process will depend on the structure that you've put forward. So from the victim identity, the end result may seem completely hopeless. I'm not worthy, I can't get it, that will never happen for me, I wouldn't even know where to start. From the problem solver, you will always be finding, the problem solver is not saying you won't get there, but you probably won't get there as easy because you're going to be finding problems that need to show up, that need to be solved. And especially if the end result is, a big end result where then after that, there's no more problems after that. There always is, but it's like there's always challenges, but it's a different perspective from the creation. So a problem solver will be very focused on the how, and the how will knock you out many times because you've lost your connection to the superconscious and will lose your intuitive action. So this is important to understand when you're choosing something, and going forward, where are you coming from? Just as another exercise, just so you can start to be aware and you start to know thyself, I want you to write down, 3 things that show up when you're coming from the identity. The 3 things, when you're choosing that end result, what were the 3 things that seemed like they were blocking, and things that, you believe come up quite a bit? Like, for example, for me, one of my failure structures is definitely procrastination, doing the wrong actions, like doing lots of little things that don't get you to the end result. These are some of my failure structures. Putting other people before me, downgrading, I'll be very self-critical of my content, of the way I do things, and playing small. So I know that probably the top 3 would be procrastination, fear of judgment, when I'm worried what people think of me, when I'm worried about how people are going to receive my videos or receive my content, or there's concern about that because I'm human and we all have it. So this is why I'm sharing with it, because it is something that triggers me too. But it's really important. Know thyself. Know thyself is just paramount when we're creating a life that we love. And then instead of trying to fix the failure structure, you just let it go. So I want you to write down 3 things. Is it the stories you tell yourself? The stories of, when you project yourself in the future and, well, this could happen or that could happen and I can't do that because, what if this happens? So you're projecting all these scenarios, these stories are playing in your head why you can't go for what you want, why you can't have it. The procrastination, the doing all the wrong actions, and getting busy on all the wrong stuff, prioritizing other activities over the activities that are going to get you to your end result. These are all failure structures. These are all identifications of your, so you'll have your own. So write down 3. I'll give you a minute. Write down 3 of them that show up for you that feel like, oh, every time I do something that sort of doesn't pan out, I have that. Maybe it is that you tell people, or maybe you don't tell anyone, so you're not accountable. Maybe you tell people and then they go, oh, that expect you not to do it. You'll tell people that can't receive the big vision that you have, so you sabotage it by telling others. Or maybe you don't tell anyone, so you're not accountable. So if it fails, you don't have to do anything about it. Or you can just sort of beat yourself up and tell yourself the stories. Write down the 3. And with those three, it's not about healing it or getting rid of it. Those structures are in place, especially if they've been in place for 30, 40 years. But the thing is, we are in a world of free will and we can choose different. It's like, not to put your hand on a hot plate. You can choose it. You can choose to do it. You can choose not to do it. You have the awareness that when something's hot, you can feel it to stay away. You have awareness of how to choose different, and you do it every day. We live in free will. You have free will. When you have awareness of a structure, you can choose a different way. So we don't need to go into I've got to heal this. Because what is that affirming? That's affirming an identity of not being good enough, not having enough, not knowing enough, not being enough, not worthy enough, or feeling powerless to the structure. You're not powerless to the structure because we have a choice. So this is the guidance, the tools. So three, you may have more than three things that show up in your failure structure, but use three of them to just trigger, that's when I do that. I'm doing that again. And then you can choose different. So if I'm getting busy on all the wrong stuff and you see yourself, you go, stop, I'm in my failure structure. So what do I need to do? I need to go back, reconnect. What's my intuitive action? What action is going to get results? What action today? So going back to your mapper, going back to your goal setting and your lenses, whichever one you're using. What action am I taking today that's going to get me closer to my end result? So if it's procrastination, choose different. If it's, about emotional eating and your failure structure is that, for example, I'm an emotional eater. So if I have a different time, I will feel like I need food. You can choose different at that time. You can start a new habit. When you're aware that, when I get off the phone from that person, I get that feeling. It's not because I'm hungry. It's because there's a little anxiety maybe that I need to deal with. So find a new way, find a new habit. And when you are aware of it, then you can act consciously, which is about being a conscious creator. When you're aware of these structures, when you're aware of those triggers, those actions that start putting you in a failure structure again, and they will all be the same. We will all have it. We are all very predictable. And things that don't work is because we are doing the wrong actions, pretty much. And even if we're doing the right actions, we will get a result that is aligned to us. It may even come up better than what we thought, or it may even come up a little bit different, but we won't have the same sense of failure about it because we are coming from a different structure. You will start to get into flow. So those three things, 3, 4, if you want to write them more down, but 3 things will be able to trigger. So when I start procrastinating, when I notice that I'm getting busy on all the wrong stuff, when I start projecting into the future stories of why I can't do this or why there's no point, it's failure structure, and it's attached to your identity. It's attached to an old identity that was there to keep you safe, but that is where we're choosing the conscious creator identity. And that's why in the recode, we look at the identities and we say as an advantage is that a mono personality works best. The conscious creator, put that person in charge. So think of a boardroom of all your identities. Think of a boardroom. You've got your protector controller, you've got your problem solver, your mother, the daughter, the friend, all the different identities that play a part in your life. And you know that they are. You've got the inner child, the wounded child, you've got the victim. And in different situations will trigger those identities to play a role. And we all have it. We all react different in different circumstances because we trigger different identities. But we can choose. We can choose that the conscious creator, let's say, is put at the CEO, the head of the table. Our conscious creator is the identity that we choose. And that is when we come from the heart. That's when we come from superconscious. That's when we come from the creative place, the place of unlimited possibilities. And we can just choose it. And we can turn down the noise of judgment, stories, and our limited perspective of ourselves. When we come from identity, we're playing small, we're limiting ourselves. The conscious creator doesn't play from identity. The conscious creator plays from connection to source, connection to the superconscious. And it's free, it's expansive, and it's different because you don't get wrapped up in how I'm going to do it. You're just choosing it because I love it. It's different. There's, you know, in true choices, when you're choosing a true choice and it's like, well, I want this because. When you've got all the list of why you want to choose something, it's not a true choice. True choice is heart expansive. It's running towards your end result, not running away from something, not trying to justify or make stories or a narrative around why you're choosing it. So I hope that is clear with the instructions. And the other thing is the end result too is also that one of following through. That is a big one. And it's a big one that actually throws people out. You have an end result, your identity gets in the way. So you don't actually follow through with the inspired or intuitive action. So a choice to bring in is I am, and this is where we want to make it an invisible instruction. I am someone that follows through. I'm someone that completes things. I follow through with this action. And that is where you create the tension. That's create the tension in the structure, the knowing that you're going to follow through. That creates some magnetic alignment that pulls you towards that end result. I'm someone that follows through. Okay? And this is true self-mastery. You're not trying to fix the failure structure. You just see it for what it is. You have awareness that it is there, and you're choosing that it's not going to be an active experience. You're choosing different because you can see it. Oh, that's that old thought program that's showing up again. That's that old belief system that often throws me out of alignment, throws me off my path. And then it's that point you reconnect. And so we're going to do that in the recode today. So today is kind of probably a little bit shorter than usual, maybe. Depends on how the recode goes and if there's any questions afterwards. So you can see the two structures, success and failure. Success is just choosing it because I love it, just choosing it because you love it. And the failure structure is you made it personal. You made it personal with different identities. You've made it personal that if it doesn't happen, it's about you, rather than just that I've put it in the wrong structure. You know, I didn't follow through. The action I took wasn't intuitive or aligned action. You know, you made it personal about your identity. You made it personal about your limited perspective about yourself. And when you have the awareness of when you're coming from those limited perspectives, then you can change it because you know you have access. You can do it so simply. Choose an end result coming from the victim. Choose an end result coming from the superconscious. It's perspective. Perspective changes everything, and you can choose to change your perspective in a moment. And I think in A Course in Miracles, they said a miracle is simply a change in perspective. A miracle can happen by simply change your perspective. So this is changing where you're, with the lens in which you're seeing it through. Are you seeing it through your conscious creator, your superconscious lens? Or are you seeing it through your problem solver victim lens? You know, your identity, making it personal, making it why you can't achieve things, why it didn't work out, and why you're not following through on the action. It may be triggering. Some of those things may even feel painful, but that's what we'll work on in the recode, and that's okay. So, you know, think about those things. They're the things that we just can let go of. We're just going to let them go. We don't need to heal it. We don't need to heal what happened in the wounded child or the victim. We're just choosing to see it differently. As simple as that. When you see it as simple as that, it changes everything. And in the recode, as you keep choosing your end result, the heaviness of whatever was showing up will release. It will feel different. Okay. All right, let's get ready for the recode. So just